This evening is the Town of Rutland Fire District's annual meeting, which was posted for this evening of Wednesday, the 7th of July, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. And I am the chairman of the Prudential Committee, and with us tonight with the other two members, Keith McIntyre is right there, and Kimberly Sackett is over there. And also we have our clerk and treasurer, Sharon Joswick here.
Can I interrupt you for just a second? Okay, so on the warning, okay, my term has ended. So you don't have any minutes in the meeting, so you might have to move that one first. My term ended tonight.
Well, we want to start with the informational part of it for the West Rutland project. I think
there's no way to take minutes.
Pardon?
There's no way to take minutes officially.
Okay, then I guess we will stop just for a moment to elect clerk of the said district. So do we have any nominations for electing a clerk?
Sharon.
Do we have a second?
Sharon.
Second.
Second. Are there any other nominations? If not, all in favor of electing Sharon?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Sharon, you are elected the clerk. To elect the treasurer of the said district.
Oh, no, you can go on now.
You're good with that?
Yeah, you can go on now.
Okay, good. For the first part of our meeting, we're going to be getting into the informational meeting to discuss the consolidating our water system with West Rutland. It's a study that's been in the works for a couple of years and it's finally done. And this is an informational meeting to ask questions and talk about it. And we will not be voting on it tonight, but there will be a vote held at a later date. We don't know when that'll be, but it'll be later, and then we will get to that. We have some guests with us tonight from West Rutland. Marianne Goulet, she's the town manager. Seth Patrica he's the water sewer member over there. And Chet Brown, he's a select board member from West Rutland. So we have those three members from West Rutland, and we thank you for coming. And also we have Mark Youngstrom from Otter Creek Engineering. He's the engineer who did the study. Mark's been with us for a long time, for some 40 plus years. He was the engineer on the job in 1980 when the water system was rebuilt here. He's been with us every step of the way when we made a connection with the city of Rutland, the connections with West Rutland, the line we built to the fire station, and every little thing that's come along the way. Mark has been our engineer for, like I said, for over 40 years. He knows our system inside and out, and he certainly knows West Rutland, Rutland City, and many other towns. So with that, I'd like to get into discussion and let Mark try to bring us up to speed with whatever he can, and then we'll have questions after that. But let's let Mark Youngstrom, again, he's the engineer from Otter Creek Engineering. So Mark, could you?
Okay. Thank you, Howard. As Howard said, I was pretty privileged over 40 years ago to be the design engineer for this water system, and also for about the same period of time, the engineer for 2 major water system improvement projects for West Rutland, and have served that community for the same amount of time, and also Rutland City. So it's a real privilege for basically my whole career to serve these 2 communities. I will briefly go through the report that I presented to West Rutland and to the fire district, which basically addresses the the possibilities, pros and cons, liabilities, and advantages of consolidating the two water systems into a single water system. And copies of that study are available if you want. You can read it in detail. But just to briefly, for those of you who aren't familiar with either of the water systems in detail, very briefly, the fire district's water system is fairly simple. It has a single gravel pack well, shallow gravel pack well, 60-gallon-a-minute well, and a single water storage tank of just a little over 200,000 gallons, and about 11,000 feet of water main. That's what replaced the existing old Vermont Marble Company kind of spider web of small diameter galvanized pipes and a bunch of springs and everything else that existed up to the time this system was built. It's been a reliable system. There's been very little investment as far as capital investment into it. It's served its purpose very well. The water quality is good. And I'll talk about some of the limitations of it, but it's been a very good water system. West Rutland has a much larger water system. They've got two 450-gallon-a-minute wells, gravel wells also, two water storage tanks, and many, many miles of water main, most of which has been replaced over the past 40 years. So their system has essentially been upgraded, rebuilt, and there's no capital improvements in the future, no significant capital. They put a small little water main up Pleasant Street right now to replace an old line, but there's no major capital improvements necessary in the foreseeable future. So the fire district I see is at a fork in the road, probably a very important fork in the road, in that a decision can be made right now of whether you stay as an independent fire district and make the necessary improvements to your water system, of which there are some that are immediate, or you consolidate and become part of West Rutland's water system, cease to be a water and sewer system, and basically make your payments to West Rutland and have West Rutland own and manage your water system. It's an important decision. And in many cases, when I've been hired to do this type of, merger, whatever you want to call it, merger, consolidation kind of things, it's very unequal. And it's obvious almost from the start that it's not going to work. Either one community wants way too much out of the deal to take advantage of the other one, or there's just not it's just for many reasons it's just not going to work. But this one could, and so it's up to you folks to decide which direction you want to go. As far as the fire district's water system, there are some immediate needs, and those are the well pump station needs some building improvements, just a roof, new roofing, some mechanical, electrical improvements, that type of thing. Nothing major, but it's the way it was built essentially 40 plus years ago. The well needs to be reconditioned, cleaned, tested, and assured that it's going to continue to produce the water over the next decades to come, because it is only a 60-gallon-a-minute well, and it's very drought susceptible, as was indicated over this past year when the pumping capacity was cut back to as low as 25 gallons a minute or so, or 30 gallons a minute, because the water table was so low. And the water storage tank is probably in very good shape. It's a tank, it's a concrete tank that really should last 100 years. But it needs to be inspected, and there could be some issues up there. You really need to have it structural engineer go up there, underwater camera, inspect it, make sure that it's in good shape, and be prepared for those improvements if necessary, because they could be significant. I estimate that, well, the other major thing is the control system that operates the wells, the water storage tank. It basically pumps water into the system, shuts the pumps off, alarm system and all that. that is ancient technology that was put in 40 years ago and really needs to be replaced. I'm surprised it's even working. So I estimate in this report that going forward, if the fire district is going to keep the system, there's about $100,000 worth of immediate improvements that need to be made into the system. And that's not surprising. You've had 40 years of running the system. It's been great, but just like anything that's mechanical, electrical, hydraulic, it needs to be maintained. So that's what you're looking at. Now, if West Rutland were to, if you were to decide to merge the system with West Rutland, you would no longer need that well. West Rutland has far more well capacity than they actually need. They've got complete redundancy in well capacity, plus over $100,000 of extra 100,000 gallons per day of extra capacity, if including what they would use to serve you. So you could abandon the well pump station, and the water storage tank, basically leaving the ductile iron piping that's in the ground, the distribution system, and the hydrants. West Rutland's already connected to your water system. I didn't mention that, but both Rutland City and West Rutland are connected to each end of your water system for emergency purposes. There's no contractual relationship with either party. The intention was that if there's another Karas Reels fire or something like that, there's some supplemental water that can easily come into the system quickly. But as far as long-term service, there's no contractual relationship with either party to agree to serve you over a long period of time, what the rate would be, what the conditions would be, all that kind of thing. So there's emergency connections on both ends for that purpose. On the wastewater end, you're already pumping to West Rutland. If you recall, years ago, not that long ago, you used to pump to Rutland City. Well, I was retained to look at the economics of that and what it would cost to replace some piping that's necessary between the pump station and the Rutland City manhole, which goes through Karas's yard, along the railroad tracks, all that. And that just made no sense economically. And so because of the new water and sewer line that we designed several years ago, you're now pumping into West Rutland's wastewater treatment plant, and you have an agreement with them to take your wastewater. So you're already consolidated there. From an administration point of view, there's another decision to make. Statewide, there's been an issue of small water and wastewater systems functioning well. And it's the same even with small communities. People volunteering for the positions and taking the responsibility of those positions to operate the utility or the town, and putting the time and training into necessary to do the work. And so that's getting harder and harder statewide. A fire district is a municipal district. You have all the rights and privileges of Rutland Town, of Rutland City, of Burlington. You are a municipal district. You operate the same way that a Vermont town or city operates. A prudential committee is the same as a board of selectmen or a board of aldermen. And so those people have to be elected, and they have to take responsibility for the quality of the water and the quantity of water that goes into each house here, as does the water operator, of which there needs to be a primary operator and a backup operator by state regulations. And that person needs to take responsibility for the quality and quantity of water and the maintenance of that system. And those people are, for whatever reason, are harder to find. And so looking ahead, you have to assure yourselves that you've got the support, the community support, to have responsible prudential committee and water operator, and be willing to pay those people as necessary to operate your utility that you're responsible for, because drinking water is no joke. I mean, in some ways, when we flush something and it goes away, we get all excited if there's an overflow into Otter Creek and that type of thing, and obviously all that's all serious and all that kind of thing. And if there's a broken sewer pipe, it goes on the ground or comes out a manhole and we have to deal with it. It's a mess. But drinking water goes from that well to the storage tank, through the mains and into our bodies. And so we're dealing with a pretty serious thing. It's drinking water that goes into all our kids and all the families. So it's something to be taken seriously, and we want the administration elected to operate that professionally. And that can be done. There are neighborhood water systems that work beautifully because the people are committed to doing it. There are large municipal systems that don't operate well. So that's just going forward. West Rutland has been operated very well over the years. They've got a great board of selectmen. When I started in West Rutland, it's kind of interesting because the Vermont Marble Company had left. West Rutland was not in very good shape. And I admire the Board of Selectmen because they said, well, we need to rebuild this town, but we need to do it from underground first, not the pretty welcome to West Rutland sign first. They dealt with rebuilding the entire water system, the entire sewer system, the wastewater treatment plant, getting the infrastructure in place so that now what's happening in West Rutland can happen. And you got to start from below the ground and work your way up. So financially, what does it mean? Well, it's interesting because I looked at what if we just did it right now? All of a sudden, your next bill came from West Rutland at their existing rates. What would happen? It's really not that bad. I mean, I did it. There's a chart there that goes down customer by customer. I think some people are in negative, some people save some money. It's all because of the different rate structures between the two communities. But some people would save some money, a few. Some people $20, $30 more a year. Some people $100 a year, or a little more than $100 a year. But that's about it. It's nothing terribly extreme. Now, you can say, well, $100 a year is a lot of money, but you also have to balance that over the fire district's not going to be able to keep the rates that they are now, in my opinion. I'm not on the Prudential Committee. But you do have to make some investments in this if you keep the well pump station, the water storage tank, and maintain the system. So the rates, in my opinion, are going to go up regardless. They should. The rates are lower than typical in the state. Right now, the typical water rate in the state on a municipal system is $500 or $600 a year, and in a wastewater system, it's $800 a year. When I started, it was $50 a year. So it's, but those are the real numbers, and I work all over the state, you know. So, I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's all kinds of details, obviously, if you were to vote to merge, but I don't see anything I don't see anything that would kill the deal if that were what you wanted to do. If you don't want to do it, I fully support that personally. There's nothing wrong with your water system, except you really need to make the commitment to make the necessary improvements going forward, finding the funding for those, working with a consultant so that you can get those done at the least cost possible. There's all kinds of funding available out there, but you've got to work to go get it. You have to work to find it, and you have to know the ins and outs of it. It's not just a simple application. And assure yourselves that you're going to have the leadership going into the future to not be in this position, 10 years down the road when you may not have as nice an offer from an adjacent community. I think West Rutland's offer is very fair. Basically, pay what we pay. I work in a lot of communities. It's not the case. And certainly, Rutland Town doesn't pay what Rutland City users pay. That's it. I don't have a lot more to share. I think it's an important decision. I think it needs to be taken seriously, obviously. And I think it's a real critical fork in the road for the fire district. I've really appreciated working with the fire district over all these years. It's a nice little water system, and it still will be a nice little water system. It's just a matter of who owns it and maintains it. And, oh, the last thing I'll mention is that the fire district owns about 90 acres of land, which is necessary because the water storage tank and the wells and some previous springs are on it. If you were to basically merge the water system with West Rutland, you would no longer need the well, you'd no longer need the storage tank. That property could be liquidated. That would be up to you. It's a fire district property, but it could be liquidated, and the proceeds, you know, either distributed to the members of the fire district or pay off some existing debt or help pay future water sewer bills. I don't know. That would be up to your decision, but the property would no longer be necessary where it is necessary right now because of the facilities that you have on those properties. So, all food for thought. And that's about it.
Mark?
Yeah.
Just, could you comment on the water situation, the water that's available to us at that one site? I mean, we have a limitation as to what's there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you have, like, as I said, you have a shallow well. I've forgotten, it's 30, 40 feet deep, something like that. It's a gravel well. Back in the 1979 or so, when we were looking for a water supply, we had a heck of a time. We first looked along Otter Creek, figured, well, there's a reasonable, go along the edge of Otter Creek. Hopefully there's some nice sand and gravel aquifers on each side, just like West Rutland has along the Clarendon River. No, it's all clay, fine, silty, crappy soil, no water-bearing lenses there at all. So for some reason, I don't recall exactly why, we ended up, doing some test wells down there off the East Proctor Road there, just because it looks like a little valley coming down there. There's a little brook in there. And we found a very narrow lens of sand and gravel in there that produces some really good water. But the bottom line is, because of close development around there, because of the very limited aquifer that you're tapped into, I don't know of another location in the fire district where you could locate another well in today's regulations. Back then, it was a lot easier to permit a municipal well. Right now, the average cost of developing a municipal well and basically getting the casing in the ground, no pumping facility or anything, just the casing in the ground permitted by the state is about $100,000. And I don't know of another location within the fire district that you could locate. You could develop a well that would be a supplemental well for the district. So you've got all your eggs in that basket. It's a nice basket, but it's limited.
Well, we did try once, Mark. We did some more exploring down there, and it didn't work out, and the state shut us off. They said, no, they didn't want us putting in another well, and that's when they made us connect on with the city of Rutland for a backup.
Right.
So,
well, because you're basically another well in the same location. Even if you could do that, basically it's just taking the water out of the same pool of water. So it's not doubling your capacity. It's just providing a second pumping facility. West Rutland, fortunately, I'll get to you. West Rutland, fortunately, they have two well pump stations right next to one another. But the sand and gravel aquifer is so prolific that they can run both those wells at the same time. Yes, sir.
Is your usage a whole lot different now than it was 20, 30 years ago or whatever out of the fire district well?
Actually, the water use in the fire district is very low. I mean, I think it's, number one, you've got very small families. You don't have very large families here. You don't have a lot of kids in the district necessarily. But I've looked at your water consumption is very low per capita, and that's good. That's good. I mean, I've worked in communities where the leakage in the distribution piping is more than the people use. It's not unusual to find 40 and 50% unaccounted for water in a community, in an older community. Rutland City.
That brings up another point.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that in our case, we're using more water than shows on the meter.
Well,
At your house.
well, the meters are the original water meters, and that's one thing that needs to be replaced, because those meters, they have a life. Now, generally, they won't over-register, they generally will under-register.
Right.
So, but there's also a master meter in the pump station, so it measures all the water that's coming out of the well, and what you do is you compare that with the total of all the users, and then you find out, okay, what water might be leaking in the ground, and what can't we account for? We're pumping this much out of the ground, this much we're selling, what's the difference? And that was the number I was talking about. In some communities, that's like 50%. But in in the fire district, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I've looked at those numbers.
But there would be a chance for more distribution if you had the capacity at the head end, right?
Yes. You could expand, I mean, if, again, scenario, if you had the well capacity, if West Rutland were supplying you water, there could be water mains extended beyond your existing district now into other parts of the town. Yes. Yeah. Further up Campbell Road, up, whatever, you could, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
But we can't now.
Can't now, no.
So Flory Heights, they mentioned Flory Heights in here. They want to get on our water, but.
They did, yes. Their water system, they were on a spring system, and they had to get off that system, and unfortunately, we couldn't take them on. And this is a case where they all drilled their own wells, and they've got some horrible wells over there. They've got very poor yields. I mean, really, really bad. That whole general area was not a place for wells. So it was unfortunate that they ended up with what they did. But, no, we don't have capacity.
West Rutland, there's a lot of people that want to hook to our system as well, that especially with the drought. And, it just comes down to money. So, we can't expand the line when it's only one or two customers.
You have the capacity, but then who pays
Yeah.
for the line
It
extension
just
and
doesn't
that type
end
of
up
thing,
being,
so, yeah.
people have to drill another well, and it doesn't really even get better. There's one section of town that,
Getting
it's-
down to 20 gallons a minute is not very good.
No, you got by, but,
Barely.
I was,
California gets by.
I came and measured it with an electric drop cord down to the well to see how close you were, and you were getting by. It was, but if we continue to have drought conditions, that's going to be a concern.
But we were getting by because we were conserving too. We had everybody
You did.
on a water notice.
You did, yeah.
So we were getting by, but if we hadn't had everybody conserving, it could have been a whole different story.
If you used the water that some communities use, you would have been in real trouble.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So on the
Go ahead.
on the conserving note, did you find that people actually use less? Or was usage down? I'm just curious. So
Yes, we did. In fact,
people
Mark,
did actually use less?
yes, Marky, you actually looked at those numbers at one point.
I looked at them, I can't recall them, but yes,
Yep.
the numbers were down.
They were down.
And it was, and you never know what they were down, and of course, you're in the middle of a season where people want to water their gardens, they want to water their lawns, they want to do all that stuff, so you don't know what it would have been, but it definitely was manageable, so people did cooperate.
And, one other item that we've got to deal with here is we have had office space in the building here forever, basically. That's gonna go away. The town is gonna renovate this whole downstairs, and the office space that we have is a bathroom, and they need a downstairs bathroom, so we've gotta go, and so that puts up, we've gotta rent someplace. I mean, really, this is not a business to try to run out of a home. We really you need an office and a place to keep all of the materials and things like that. So we're faced with that coming in the future.
Howard, if that happens, to my knowledge, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
This office here does not pay water and sewer. Because
correct.
the office is run up here.
That's correct.
So if this happens, if it happens, are they gonna get billed up here?
Absolutely. When we leave, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. No, that's, no, we,
Great.
no, it was a good deal for us. They had extra space. They let us use it. And this goes way back to Dick Del Bianco's days. And we said, well, hey, why not? We won't bill you as long as we have space to use. It worked. But because without that, Ed, we'd be, where would we go? You know, we'd have to pay to go someplace. And that's, that can be an issue. I don't know where it'll be. That's,
Yeah, it's very, when I started working, I'd go into a community many times, and there would be free water to the schools, to the churches, to all the municipal buildings, you know, free water all over the place, because people are only paying like $50 a year anyway, you know? And as rates have necessarily come up because of the improvements that are made, people aren't drinking out of open ponds anymore and all that. The free water situation has gone away. And, you know, people say, well, we all pay for this and we all pay for that, so they don't have to pay for water and all that stuff. Basically, the rule of the road right now is everybody pays the same. So it's only fair.
Yeah, question for West Rutland. You guys put that new line in on Route 4 here. How many people have actually hooked up to the water system?
To the water, 8 maybe?
Yeah, somewhere 10 to 12.
10 to 12. So Pulteney Pools,
Pools,
Carney's, Rosenberger's, Shirosky's house,
A few houses do their Karis reels on then is hooked up.
Karis Reels, yeah. So about a dozen, 10 to 12.
About the same as the sewer.
Rosenberg's hitch up the sewer and water?
Yep.
Yeah. But their new building, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Just
that
one
new
for
place,
sewer?
right?
Just one for sewer?
Oh,
I think sewer's a couple less.
yeah,
So that's
so,
probably more like 8 that are on.
yeah. So, and it's tough because they have to, get an engineer and, you know, it's a little bit of an investment, but,
But it's a lot less investment than if they had to provide those services on site themselves, which would be, in many cases, not be possible. So it certainly opens it up for businesses and that type of thing, and larger water and sewer users, for sure.
I guess we should go on to West Rutland. I just don't want to move the time here, but we should go on to West Rutland now. West Rutland, let them speak.
you have questions for them?
Yep,
That's-
she's got the sheet.
I mean, I've got a sheet here. I'd probably have to do some research on a lot of these. But I mean, you can see the key components of what West Rutland has. We have a great water system. We have 2 full-times. We have Seth is both water and sewer, and we have another person who's also highway that covers the highway, the water pager, and then we have another sewer person. So everybody's cross-trained. So we have 3 licensed operators in the town. And we have, 763 customers, and we hook up another probably dozen this year just with new houses and people who are converting over from wells. Our average water and sewer rate is about $750, $800 a year. We build twice a year, and the actual rate structure is different from yours. We don't rely so much on consumption, and it's funny because a lot of water districts got into trouble, especially when we had a lot of empty houses and there was no water usage, and there was a big issue with people, water districts not having enough money to run the operation. So our fixed rate is a little higher than the consumption rate. So, and that can change as time goes. I mean, we don't really reward somebody for conserving water because we still have fixed costs whether or not you turn your faucet on or not. So we try to make it so it's never a huge increase in your water bill, and it's never a decrease. So really, you open up your bill and it's pretty much $750, $800 a year, and it has been for a long time.
And you've got the water supply to back that up, so conservation becomes less of an issue than.
Yes, yes, but, you know, there was a lot of, you know, empty houses, and I mean, not that long ago, there was, you know, what the usage was way down, and, you know, there was a lot of people that were getting into trouble because the bills were just so low that nobody was able to cover their costs, so, Chet, you've been around a lot longer than I have, so.
Yeah, what we did was we set the flat rate for one reason. We have to cover our basic cost. So the flat rate covers our basic cost. Then you charge per, is it 100 gallon or 1,000 gallon? I forgot which.
It's a great
point. What it is anyway. And you pay the extra, that's why you get the meters in the house. So that extra money is added to the flat rate. The flat rate is about $132, I think it is now. Then you pay per gallon for every gallon you use, or every 100 gallons is so many cents. And that's how we get the extra money for our addition, for our upgrades, and extra money. That gives us a little extra money to do upgrades, and like we're doing Pleasant Street right now, we're doing relines there, and gets us extra money for that. The sewer, we don't have it's just a flat rate. We don't have no meters or nothing, so you're not metered for your sewage. You're only metered for your water. You don't want to get metered. The sewage is a flat rate, just like your flat rate for your water before you start.
And what's the sewer one? How much is that?
Well, right now, so Sharon does the reading, so what you guys pay us for the year?
Well, it varies depending on what goes through.
Right, so we do a 350 gallons is one unit.
Yeah, you do, yeah, that's what you do, one unit, yep.
So we take, you know, the thousands or whatever gallons you guys do it quarterly. And then we just divide that number by 350, that gives you a unit.
2 years, but after that, is there going to be a base? Or is it including the base in there?
That's already, yeah, that's the base, yeah.
How much is your base?
So it is
Right now,
185 every 6 months.
187, I thought.
Yep,
Yeah,
yeah.
187 is what I thought.
Base.
Twice a year.
Yes.
Twice a year.
Yeah, that's a flat rate. That's just for your sewer. That's it. You know, you're not getting charged per gallon like you are the water. The water has a flat rate, and you get charged per gallon. So it depends on how much your usage is after that.
And Chet, with what you talked about, we ran into the same thing when we first put this water system in.
Yeah.
We ran it for just a little bit, and then we realized, hey, we're not getting enough money here. We had to take that base rate, and we adjusted that maybe 3 different times. It was Charlie Voida, Guido Del Bianco, myself, and we said, you know, it was obvious. We can't do this. So we had to set a base rate because those that were only using very little water had to.
Right, that's why we ended up with that and then put the meters in to make the offset for how much water we actually use, because some people use 100 gallons a year, some people use 10,000 gallons a year, you know, like some people fill their swimming pools. Everybody thinks that's crazy. Oh, you fill my swimming pools? I think it's less than $10 to fill your swimming pool.
Right.
I mean, you know, you pay $450 a truckload. I'm not on the system. I'm just outside of town. Well, I wish I was, man. I miss the water system. I got a well, and man, you turn the faucet on, there's no pressure there. When you turn the faucet on downtown, holy my God. I remember I had to go down and put a reducer in town when I was first moved to my house because the pipes would jump right up and down in the cellar. Yep. Because there was no reducers when I first put it up, you know.
We have a lot of water.
70 pound reducer in the big cellar now, so that really helped out. But out where I am now, you go like that. Oh yeah, the water's running. Yeah. You know, it's a well, it's a good well, but I mean, it just ain't got the pressure. And you get into the shower and you want to take a shower. God, again, is it salt out of my hair yet? You know, it's like, or the other way, it's, oh, I got my head left, you know. I mean, it was so good. I don't miss it.
That's $700 or $800 a year for water. Does that include the sewer?
Yeah.
So every,
Consumption part, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's everything.
Right.
Then
Yeah.
we charge for the
Yeah.
consumption.
Per gallon.
you said that,
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
per 100
So-
So it'd be 800 plus your consumption, whatever you use over
over the,
But not many people go into that because you allow such in your base rate, you allow what these people would just use normally.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You know, every community establishes its rate structure that seems to best fit the community. And they used to be all over the place. I remember Proctor used to charge per sink, per bathtub, per, you know, for outside, basically per faucet.
Yeah.
Whether or not the water came out of it. It didn't have anything to do with how much water you used. It was just per faucet, you know. Kitchen sink, bathroom sink was all different rate. You know, I mean, it was crazy. You know, it's not that way anymore, of course. But more and more communities are going with a base rate and then over the normal amount that a family would use as kind of a consumption rate as an extra. And the reason for that is, as Mary Ann just said, and as Chet just said, the fire district or the town has to meet its obligations financially. It has to meet its budget. It has to pay bills. And whether or not people use water or not, those bills are going to be the same because the only variable is the electricity that's pumping the water out of the ground. The rest of it, salaries, insurance, maintenance, all that stuff is all going to happen regardless of whether you pump a gallon out of the well or not. So in many ways, you want to do it as a fixed rate. Divide it across the board. It's this much a year. We know we're going to get that money. But then there's a factor of kind of fairness in there. And you also don't want to, somebody says, well, I'm paying $400 a year. I'm going to let my faucet run 24/7. I don't care. You know, so you have to have that factor in there where you want to promote some conservation, you don't want people to abuse the use of the water. Plus you want, you know, somebody with, you know, a family of 12 next to a family of 2 or something like that to kind of provide some kind of fairness and they feel like they're not, one's not getting ripped off, basically. So you set up a rate structure. They're not all the same. Yes, sir.
Do we know exactly how much it's going to cost for the new meters?
No, I mean, new meters generally run about installed somewhere around $500 per installation. You know, that includes the meter, the meter, the reader, the installation, all that, $500 to $600 per. Now, the whole question is, you know, if the fire district stays as the fire district, that's something you're going to invest in for sure. I mean, you need, they're old meters. The readers now, you don't have to go house to house anymore. They radio read them right out to a little collector. Somebody drives down the road, and that's the way West Rutland does it right now. Yeah, you drive down the road and your little computer's just going collecting all the information. That's it. You don't have to go knock on the door or sneak around the back of somebody's house.
Good exercise.
Yeah, but there's a cost involved to that where now the technology is such that it just sends it right out. But if West Rutland were to say take over the system or something like that, then part of the negotiation is, okay, well, how do those meters get paid for? Do you pay for them out of, say, your land sale and just pay for them that way? Or does West Rutland incorporate it into their budget and replace those meters along with meters that they're going to replace on their system? I mean, those are the kind of details that after you make your decision, you work out those details. Go ahead.
One other question, primarily for West Rutland. Who's going to try to collect that money that hasn't been paid since Nixon was president of the past dues? I mean, nobody seems to be able to get $42,000 out of this person. Well, West Rutland going to keep giving them water and not being paid?
Well, no.
I'd shut her off.
Yeah. That, I mean, Mary, I may not know the details of all your delinquents, but most communities recognize, and again, I'm not speaking for this one case, but most communities recognize that you're not helping somebody by letting them get so far in arrears that they can never get out of arrears. You know, so you try and work out, a payment plan, you try and work it out, but when push comes to shove, just like Green Mountain Power will do, you know, you shut them off. And that's a hard thing to do, especially when you're neighbors and you know all these people and all that kind of thing. But That's what happens, and most of the time, somehow you'll get paid one way or the other. But
That's why we went to paying twice a year now, because it was easier for people to make them 2 payments than it is to make 1 payment at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And then we try to work with everybody, even break it down even finer if we have to, make them so they can pay it maybe once a month. We're open, set 5 days a week in there. Come in and make your payment. We'll take your money. If it's only going to pay each week if you have to. We're not going to turn you away because again, as long as you can make it, that's all we're looking for.
Well, based on some of the figures that I saw, it's going to double or triple people's water bill.
I don't,
That's with the added bonds.
there's no bonds.
You're not gonna have a bond?
No,
for
no,
meters?
that was made very,
Well, you might for the new, depending on how that works out, but the new meters might be.
Mary Ann, I think if you go down through the questions, you're gonna answer a lot of these questions.
Oh, good. Yeah. Mhm.
So Howard, are we gonna, do you, as chairman, do you want all these questions answered now, or how do you want to do that?
That's something that, Mary Ann, that you perhaps, you're gonna need some time to go through them.
Well, she can roughly go through them and then take,
I mean, I can give you some, so the first one is about the base rate, so that would, I think we already talked about that. And again, I told you why we have the base so high. So the base is higher, the consumption is lower. How many gallons of water do I use before you start charging me? I charge you for every gallon.
Well, I think the question was, after they go over that consumption, what is like, ours is 7,000, then we start charging. What's yours?
So the $132 charge is just to have a quart.
Just to be connected to me. Just to be connected. And people, a lot of times when the houses were vacant, they were still getting a water bill. And people,
No different than CV charging it $18.
Yeah.
Right.
But with that, you get so much, you get a base, you get a minimum, up to so many gallons.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm trying.
For the base though.
The base is 210, right, for a year, for the water?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
$210 is for the base.
Yes.
How many gallons is that?
Well, I mean, it's like point, do you have the rate schedule right in front of us?
I'm trying to think if I have the rate schedule.
So, I do have an
wait a second,
example bill
I do have it.
Yeah, because right now ours is 132.
So we start charging you for your first gallon, but it's like 0.001 cents.
Then after that,
Yeah.
7,000 gallons?
No, we're at 7. We're at
That's your 7,000.
Fire district
Yeah.
is 7,000. Now, if you use 7,000, we charge 25% in 100 gallons.
Yeah, so I have an example of a bill somewhere.
Ours is per gallon, no matter what.
Yeah.
From 1 gallon right up through to 100,000
Yeah.
gallons.
Right, we're at 17 cents for 100 gallons, so you're.
So yeah, so if you didn't use any water, again, if it's a vacant house, you're still getting a bill for the base charge and probably 5-10 cents for the consumption if you're not using any water, but you're still getting a bill. And that's been the same in West Rutland. And people, aren't necessarily happy, but, and a lot of people will ask to shut it off if it's vacant and it's winter time, so we go and shut it off, but you still get a bill.
If more people are added to it, would that average number go down?
Possibly. Yeah. I think, we still, when we have our, we still have fixed costs, but we have more customers, so you would think, realistically,
If 111 new customers came on, that would be an opportunity for West Rutland to take a look, or certainly delay any rate increases potentially.
Yeah.
So
when we put the water and sewer line through Center Rutland, the West Rutland voters had to vote a bond for it. And the way we got it passed was to say nobody's paying for this bond except for the users in Center Rutland. So, and the fact that you guys are paying me now for your sewer, plus those dozen customers, we haven't quite broken even yet, but we expect to soon. And, it's kind of like, if you build it, will they come? And it was a gamble for the town to say, you know what, do we want to take this on when it's not in our town? We said, yes, it's good for the whole region. It's good to have water and sewer through Center Rutland. It can promote new business growth. And, but we didn't increase the rates to West Rutland customers at all. Yes, sir.
You said that you put it up for a bond and it went out to a vote. Are we gonna be able to vote for it? Let's say you had to put out another bond 10 years from now. I live in Center Rutland, not West Rutland.
You would actually, that brings up a contentious issue in many communities. Now, a bond, if West Rutland takes on a bond for utility improvement, only the registered voters in West Rutland can vote on that because it's West Rutland that's liable for the bond. Unless you were a consolidated water sewer district, like the Virgins Panton Water District or something like that, which we're not talking about right now, at least I haven't talked about that. So it would be just the registered voters in West Rutland that would vote on any indebtedness that was taken, even though you're connected to the system. And that's the same.
So your answer is no.
The answer is no.
Well, the same thing, if you needed an improvement on this side.
You would vote on it. It would be voted for the
No.
No. West Rutland would vote on it. You own the system.
We wouldn't be able to.
Doesn't matter what the pipe is.
Oh, that's right.
No, doesn't matter.
This is all legal, new to me too.
No.
I'm still trying to get all the
No, and this is,
You can't be registered in two towns.
No.
And we're already registered in Rutland Town.
so, and this is, and this goes on where water and sewer utilities cross municipal boundaries. This is a question that's always asked. And it's just the way it is. Now, how the community deals with it is what's important and with that. But that is the case. Just like a landowner, Karis Reels here doesn't vote, even though they may be, let's say they were the largest water user you had. In many cases, some communities I go in, the largest water user can't vote on the bond. The one who's going to pay the most for the water system improvements can't vote because they don't live in the community. So it's just the way election law is set up.
So hypothetically, if you had to put in a new line, say on Whipple Hollow Road, and you have a bond, do we get the same bond? Do we have to pay that bond also?
Well, that would have to be figured out if any future bonds would be, if we were merged.
On the flip side,
In
the flip side, you had a line blow up here on Route 4.
Well, and that's our big question, like what shape are your lines on?
Well, they're class 52 ductile iron pipes, so I'm not worried about that. But if that were to happen,
right,
all the users of the water system would pay for that improvement, right? So it works both ways. Right.
So, and right now, if we have a break, I mean, we have a line item for $50,000, and we have little breaks all the time that, it's usually in the middle of the winter, and it's cold as hell, and,
part of the budget.
It's part of the budget. So, and we expect that, so this would be, these are big improvements that we'd look at.
And there is still money out through the state in different places that we can grab.
Drinking water,
for some of the upgrades, if you needed an upgrade in your area too, there's still money out there that we just got to hire guys like Mark here to go get it for us.
Well, right now the funding couldn't be better for municipalities, but there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Right.
I mean, we all read about all this infrastructure money all coming down. Everybody reads the papers. It's there, but you just have to know how to go get it.
I heard that because we have so much delinquent people here, we can't get any of that money.
No, that's not true. That's not. Yeah, no, that's not true. There's no funding application that I've ever been involved with that looks at delinquencies. They may ask that information.
okay.
They may ask that information, but it does not go. I mean, if they look at the fire district and whether the fire district is creditworthy. And so,
And that's when they say we weren't creditworthy because we couldn't collect.
who said that to you?
State of Vermont.
No, I've
I'll
never,
show you the emails when you get together.
okay, I've never heard. They do what's called a capacity interview, and they may point that out as saying, we don't like that kind of thing, but I've never been involved in a community that's ever been denied funding, so.
I think you answered this question. So if the merger were to happen, then you take over the administration of everything, of the system. And so it's been dissolved, so that's your responsibility.
Yeah, so I
Our
mean,
responsibility,
and yeah, so and it's one water test now instead of both communities doing water testing. You know?
The fire district would still continue until you legislatively dissolve the fire district. So the fire district, it's a municipal entity. So whether or not you're operating water and sewer, it still exists as a municipal district. It was created to supply water and sewer, obviously, but it still exists. So if the district wanted to continue to exist for some reason, I don't know why, it would still exist. You have to go through a legislative process to dissolve the fire district. And interesting, until about the last 20 years, there was no legislation to dissolve fire districts. They couldn't, the first one said, well, legislature said, well, we don't know how to do that. We can't do that. And so, but now there's a process where the legislature will approve. You go through your local representative and you can dissolve it.
We were in that same boat about 25 years ago, where we had the Prudential Committee too, and we ended up dissolving it after the town took over the water and sewer. The select board did, and we dissolved the Prudential Committee because we were in the same thing. We had people that didn't really want to work. It's a lot of time spent you ain't getting paid for most of the time, and a lot of time. And then they decided they didn't want to do it no more, so we took it over as a town. And we had to go through, like you said, the legislature to dissolve the Prudential Committee. It wasn't no big deal. It's not a big deal. All you got to do is you have to have a vote that says you want to dissolve it. Then take it to the legislature, and then they just basically okay it, and that's it.
And so if I'm hearing it correctly, meetings like this, if we were to merge, we wouldn't be part of them because we're not voters, registered voters, correct?
Well,
We can attend, but not be a part of any decision.
Can't vote.
Can't vote. That's correct. Yeah.
What is the time frame that everybody's thinking that if we do go with West Rutland, a couple of years, this year?
That's entirely up to you.
It's going to be how, we get a vote out and see how, line up votes for both towns. Both towns have to vote on it. So we'll have to get that lined up and then go from there to see where we go from there. And then it's going to take probably a while for legal to get through what's legal and what we can do legal-wise. Like I said, it's going to be new. It's new for me to get all these new, combine them both together.
So you don't do these things ahead of time so we are like prepared?
Well, we've been looking at it for the last 2 years.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the first time, well, and so, we talked about it, and we said, Mark offered to do the study, so we did put some investment. The town said, well, we're not going to say no, we're not going to say yes, but we needed the study in order to make any sort of decision. And because Mark knows both systems so well, he did it, and then the board said, how much risk is there? What's the condition of everything? Seth and I took a walk up to the water storage unit. I got a tick.
More than one tick.
We all got covered in ticks. But, just to see, we had, so we've started from day one because we're like, well, do I really want another 100 customers? I don't know. Maybe, yeah, sure, possibly. But what else, what else are we taking on? We're taking on more than just 100 customers. We're taking on, the whatever feet of pipe and...
Pipe in the ground.
11,000 feet of pipe and,
yes.
and 11 customers and water service piping and that type of thing.
It appears to me that when you did the price comparisons, that you're saying this is what our current billing is, but we need, I think was the figure, $100,000 worth of immediate repairs.
Yeah.
Has any thought or any kind of study been done what that rate would be for us to cover that 100,000 that suddenly makes it less, that we're going to be paying more than what it would cost if we merged into West Rutland?
There's, the answer to that is, at least from my involvement, is no, because you don't know how you're going to finance that. If you're going to finance it, turning it into a project that, say, the state or rural development is going to fund, then we have to know what the terms of that funding might be, how much might be forgiven, what the loan interest rate would be, what the term would be, that kind of thing. If you looked at it as going to a bank and doing a short-term note, 5-year note or something, then what would the term for the bank be to do that? So it depends on, it's like going to buy a car. How much is it, what's my payment going to be? And then you could turn around and figure out what that would be. So
I think then if you have to pay salaries, you know, if you have to start paying somebody to do the work, and then the fact that you don't have a reliable water source, you might run out. I guess is, you know, so you have to weigh that, like how much is that worth to you? So.
I think that we need to get new estimates, because those estimates that were given were over a year and a half old, something like that.
Well, the estimates I gave you, and I still would go by these numbers, they're very rough. I mean, until you really identify the work and really define clearly what the work is, then these estimates are good for this purpose right now.
I'd like to get a few more estimates.
You can't get estimates until you really define the work, so you need to hire an engineer to really look at what it is that you're going, what kind of control system are you going to put in, and what that actually is.
So I think it's something that we should look into.
But it will be,
no, we have the funds, I guess.
It's going to be in that $100,000 range. I've done this enough that it's not going to be, you know, it's going to be 10 or 15% up or down.
And anyone that's, you know, gone into Home Depot lately, you know, any materials aren't going down, labor's not going down, so whatever it was last year.
Hurt anything?
Oh, it won't hurt. It won't hurt for sure, but whatever those numbers are, they're.
When's the last time the storage tank was inspected?
What's that, the tank?
Yeah, inspected or cleaned.
It's probably been like 6 years, maybe.
No major deficiencies were found?
No, there are some cracks in it, and they wanted to address those and try to repair them, but COVID came, and then this project here came up, and so we just haven't done anything any further with it. But there are some issues with the tank.
Those tanks are, Howard's probably referring to some superficial cracking. I would doubt that they're real.
Have you had divers go in the tank in the last 40 years?
Yeah.
I know fire district, they have divers in their tank every year. Yeah. Usually in the winter because they don't like the divers, I think.
They either have a diver to do the inspection properly. It's either a diver or an ROV that goes in there. That's
has
correct.
That been done?
Did they send a diver in?
It's probably been 6 years. We've had a live diver in the pool, but the last couple of times it was a robot that went in a robot.
Yeah.
So it has been inspected, so there's no surprises in the tank?
There's a state requirement that they need to be inspected, that's correct. And these tanks this tank was built by Natgun Corporation, same that have built the 2 West Rutland tanks, actually. They're pre-stressed concrete tanks. They're very reliable, and I expect a long life without major costs related to them.
Have there been any looking into deepening the well, the one well we do have?
You don't have the gravel. You don't have the water source. We took very thin aquifer in there, and we took all of it. Yep.
It's less than 40 feet.
Oh, well, the actual gravel lens is probably closer to, productive gravel lens is probably 15, 17 feet the most, so, yeah.
You know, Mark, going forward, one of the things that I think we need to be looking to do is to how the next step would come into play. And is that going to take somebody like Paul Giuliani, a bond counsel, to figure out how we start looking to pull off this vote? I mean, the vote's going to happen, but how is this going to come about? Are we going to need some direction from somebody?
Well, the vote is a completely mechanical process that an attorney like Paul Giuliani would give you a cookbook as to. If both communities are going to go ahead with a vote, a yes or no vote on this, then it gets warned a certain way. the ballot question will be worded a certain way, and the registered voters in those communities will vote on it, and obviously both communities would have to affirm that they want to go ahead. But ahead of that, there would have to be some informational meetings, some more informational meetings, more detailed information given in preparation for that vote. And obviously it would behoove both communities to provide as much information as possible, answer as many questions as possible for people to vote intelligently one way or the other. This meeting is only just my understanding is just to bring the whole concept to the public at this point, not to answer every blooming little question. That will come before the vote. Every question like these here and all that stuff, those can all be answered. They can be answered in writing. You know, when I've done bond votes before for communities, and I've done dozens, I hope that by the time the vote comes, there are no more questions. I want every question answered. And so I've done like newsletters with questions and answers, and then follow up answering people's questions in writing to every voter in writing, just because I think it's responsible that every voter have all the information before they vote on something, and they have all their questions answered.
Yes.
Plus at least 2 public meetings where every question can get answered and all that stuff before that. That's not the intent of this meeting tonight. This meeting is my understanding. This meeting is just put it out there. These studies were done, and here it is. And to realize that there's a fork in the road to make in the near future in investments either way, you know, so.
Would it be appropriate to work something out with the fire district and West Rutland to agree to to get this direction from Paul? To get it? To get from him the ground rules as to where we have to go, so we can at least start thinking and knowing, yeah, there's gonna be more meetings for sure. But until we get something from him, really don't know how this is gonna play out, or how it's gotta play out.
Well, it seems like it would be useful to have some information or a realistic estimate of what it would actually cost to have the water tank looked at, and if it does actually need repairs, or what that would cost. I mean, it's all speculation right now, and it's just not really concrete information to make a decision to get rid of the water system that we have for the one that's that is clearly going to cost us all more.
I'm making the assumption that the water storage tank doesn't need any investment based on my experience. So I don't have any costs. That $100,000 I put in there has nothing related to the water storage tank, because I really believe that the storage tank is going to not require any major investments. The estimates I provided were for water meters, a new control system, and building improvements to the well pump station, and some work on the well itself, which all I feel are needed immediately. So.
And some of that monies that would go for that could be given to us by the state, the federal government, or whatever, to help us pay for those?
Not given to you. Loan to you. Yes, loan to you. Loan to you.
Oh, so it wouldn't be like a grant or anything like that?
No, at some point, sometimes they forgive the loans under certain conditions. It all depends on what your generally what they will use for forgiveness is if your water rate exceeds 1% of the median household income in the community. So let's just say the median household income, I'll just pick a number, $50,000. If your water costs you more than $500 a year, they'll start adjusting the interest rate or the forgiveness or that type of thing. So it's not that, your water rates right now are pretty low. So your chances of forgiveness, unless something comes through with a new infrastructure bill or something like that where it's purely a handout, and that I don't have any information yet because they haven't passed the bill yet, it would probably be a loan. It could be a zero interest loan, but it would be a loan.
They did give us some forgiveness with the city connection.
They did at that time.
Yeah.
Every year it's different.
Yeah, at that time they did.
Yeah.
Because I worked on that with Dick Delping.
Yeah. Every year it's completely different. So, Right now, they're using about a 1% rule, but that can change. Yes, sir.
Just a question of clarification and a comment. So the vote, you were talking about both communities voting. So we're not talking about a vote that would happen in a meeting like this. We're talking about going to the ballot box and the entire community would vote to dissolve just this sections of town's water district, correct?
The entire fire district. Registered, the fire district would vote, you'd have to be a registered voter in the town of Rutland and reside in the fire district.
But are we talking a November ballot box vote, or are we talking a meeting vote like this? Is that what you're?
No, it'd be an Australian ballot box.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
so it's not like we're coming, it's not like we have to wait till November and, okay.
No, all day vote, just like a presidential, exactly like a presidential election.
Right.
So it could be on any day of the year.
Right. So my comment is, it sounds as though our rates are really low. So, and it also sounds like we don't have any reserve to do any repairs that are necessary or upgrades that have been necessary. So it only goes to reason that our rates really need to increase in order for us to maintain what we have. And then we have to have a bond to increase, to pay for the increase of maintaining what we haven't been maybe maintaining. So it almost sounds like if we stick with what we're doing, we're gonna spend more money and pay more money because we're not a very big district. We're gonna end up paying more money than if we were to consolidate, get rid of the problems that we would have to pay for. That's just my comment. And I know we'll have lots more questions and talk about this over meetings.
In general, from my perspective, and again, I have no skin in this game, but what you're saying is, what you're saying, I believe, is true, because it is so close. Because many times when I'm dealing with consolidations, it's like this, and it's just not gonna work, But here, you're right. Your rates are going to go up. There's no question. They have to.
No matter what,
they have to go up.
2 years ago, we said that.
Yeah, and if you remove some of those liabilities, then that offsets the small incremental cost of going to West Rutland for a while. Now, who knows what 10 years down the road, there's no guarantees anywhere.
Well, plus, we could put all that money into what we have and still not have water.
You still only have one well. That is correct. That is correct. One shallow well.
A drought for 5 years.
It's served you well over the years, but there's not much extra.
We might charge you a lot more in 5 years. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think you don't want to pay Rutland City's water rate.
I know, I'm saying,
Right.
it's an emergency situation.
Yes.
I'm just saying, people who are connected to two places.
You are. In an emergency situation, you're in a good position that way.
But you said that line to the city isn't good, though. We'd have to do some upgrades.
Oh, no, the line to the city, there's a valve that you can get city water. I'm just saying you don't have any real contract with the city over a long term if you want to buy that water. I don't know if they'd sell it to you at the Rutland town rate, which is probably the default, because what else would they do? But anyway.
Because the way that would work now, Mark, would be if we needed water, they would fill the tank, shut it off, and then go back in 2 or 3 days and fill the tank back up.
Oh yeah, it's a manual thing where basically it's like turning the hose on and turning the hose off. You're just keeping the tank full and then running up to the tank to make sure there's water in it. Yeah.
Is there any thought of contingency if West Rutland says, go pound sand, we don't care if you have water or not? And then what, we're still in the same boat with one well and needs $100,000 worth of repair?
Well, I think we showed you that we're in good faith because we put the line.
Oh, no, I think you guys are.
No, I'm just saying.
You don't know about the resident on top of Dirty Hill?
Oh, yeah, right. I'm just
Isn't that going to go?
Just to give you an example, when we had Karis Wheels fire,
So if
we
you
opened
don't
up
know.
the city one, right, Howard?
What's that?
We had the Karis Wheels fire, we opened up the city, and they were very nice to us, weren't they?
Yeah, they were nice, but even the city couldn't handle Karis Wheels fires. We've had 3 major fires, and the fire department had to draft water out of Otter Creek each time because
That was a big fire, I mean,
we drained
it was nice enough.
we drained our tank and had to shut that off. The city's mains are so plugged up out here that they couldn't get the water supply that they wanted and had to actually get out of the creek. If we were connected to West Rutland, that would not be a problem. There's a 12-inch main from West Rutland that would handle every bit of that.
We had we had the Rosenberger fire.
Yeah. Even last year, with last year's drought, we didn't even really touch our wells.
My question is the fire district, we could vote right now and say, yes, let's connect to West Rutland, that's.
We could say no. We could
But
say
the West Rutland voters could say, no.
No, they
And
could.
we're right in the back in the same boat, so has there been any look at?
You could. You could. I mean, I certainly can't speak for the West Rutland voters, but I think from their perspective, they'd be picking up some additional customers. It helps stabilize their rates. And I think there seems to be a very good relationship between the West Rutland Select Board and their water and sewer users, and a lot of trust there. So I wouldn't anticipate that would happen.
So you haven't even looked at what if?
Well, it was in the paper and I didn't get any phone calls. Did you get any phone calls?
No.
That was all quiet.
Do you guys have a backup? If, say, we are in a drought for 5 years, do you guys have anything?
We're in the backup for everybody. We're in the backup for everybody. Actually, the hospital, we're the backup for.
Just let me answer the one question. Yep. West Rutland has 2 wells that can combine 900 gallons a minute. So, and they essentially they could shut down one of those wells and still take you on and still have reserve capacity to sell water.
Yeah, we have a million gallons sitting there.
And they have a million gallons in water storage sitting in tanks.
So I'd say if they're in trouble, then we're in trouble.
They're in trouble. You're dried up.
Yeah, I mean, we're the backup for the hospital. I mean, we just because we.
You know, I think we don't know what we don't know, and I think one of the questions is what are the costs if we were to remain ourselves, if there was a no vote from West Rutland, or if we had a no vote, you know, what would be the cost? We're talking $100,000 immediately, but going down the road, continuing, I mean, we do have to replace the meters, no matter who gets
the meters get replaced regardless.
They have to. We have to pay for it, so that's got to be paid for, whether we combine or not. And so the idea is, what is that? There has to be an increase for us to repair what we have now and then be able to maintain it. You know, and that going forward.
And that takes, if you want those, and I agree that it's nice having that information. That just takes some investment in retaining somebody to look at that and provide that information to you. And if you really want to look at the whole water system, if you either before or after a vote, I would probably suggest after, if you elected to keep the water system. I think the first step would be to do what's called a preliminary engineering study and look at the entire needs of the district over the next 30 to 40 years and really look at a financial plan as to what it's going to take to do this. And we do that kind of thing all the time for communities. And if you're going to get any funding, the state or rural development will require that study be done before they'll even consider a funding application, because they don't want something that's just thrown against the wall kind of thing. They want basically an engineer to basically say, here's the plan and it's well documented, and yes, okay, then we'll fund this project because they've got the information they need to put money on it. So
I guess, and there's other people that ask kind of the same question: what would it cost if we were to approve our own? How do we, and I don't know if it's something we propose or if it's something that the three of you one of you has to propose and second and vote on. How do we propose that gets done so that that information is provided so that we can make an educated and informed decision, because we don't know what we don't know.
I've already asked about getting some estimates done, but it was shot down.
So who makes that proposal? Is that something we can do tonight? No.
Howard has to be said, because he's the chair, he has to say yes or no.
No, that's not true yet, but I've said right along that it would be awful nice. We've got this issue in front of us with West Rutland or staying alone. The sooner we can resolve that and figure out, is that what West Rutland and the fire district want to do or don't want to do? Because if we decide that we don't want to do it, then the fire district needs to get on with our own stuff and get going with it. So it'd be nice if we could come to a decision here pretty soon as to which way to go. We would need to get some rough numbers, and Mark is throwing some rough numbers at us.
I'll say it again. The numbers that I've given you are in the ballpark. you know,
For immediate.
for $100,000, yeah.
For immediate,
Yeah.
but there's other, and so, yeah, that,
So, yeah,
but how does that meet out amongst the fire district? In other words,
Right.
per, like, how much extra is that going to increase?
a bunch of scenarios could be done, as if you
Right.
finance it this way, this is how much it would cost, if you went to the bank, this is how much, yeah.
And I think that would be
Those are,
advantageous to
those are
have
easy those are easy
And then on
calculations.
top of it, there has to be a rate increase. We were talking about rate increase 2 years ago.
We've been talking about, yes.
The thing is, and again, there's no money to maintain what we already have, so there has to be an increase just to be able to have a buffer to maintain. And so what does that look like? And how does that compare to the increase that we might be looking at, or possibly a decrease?
Well, we're almost operating paycheck to paycheck. I mean, there was one period where Sharon couldn't pay West Rutland because we hadn't collected enough money from our bills that going on. So, I mean, we're in a situation where we're running a pretty tight ship. We don't have a surplus of money. We're tight.
So we can't even do repairs if we wanted to.
Well, I've actually seen the checkbook and we have money that can start the repairs.
How much money?
I don't know, 50, 60,000?
Yeah,
That's-
54,776.08 in the checking account.
Yeah, that's,
But what liabilities do we have in the immediate future, Howard,
that's that.
to offset that?
Yep.
Yeah, there is also $50,000 in money sitting out there that owes us, below us.
Now, let me just add on the, just,
$42,000 that didn't come last month.
and then, and
Why is the water still on?
Why wasn't that?
well, Ed, let me try to answer that. It's been on, certainly for the last year, there's been a lot of things that went wrong with that, but it's been on the last year because of the COVID, it couldn't be
Right,
shut
this-
off. But I was told,
42,000 wasn't just last year either.
no, it wasn't last year, but let me just say, I talked with the tax collector Tuesday of this week. And what he's told me is within the next 2 weeks, he's writing a letter to the select board. He's requesting a meeting with the select board, with the prudential committee here, with the attorneys that are involved in it, to get onto this. And what they were supposed to do was to put these buildings up for a tax sale, and they've been put on hold. But he told me within 2 weeks, he's gonna have a letter to the select board, and that we should be having a meeting very soon to go forward with this, to try to see where it's gonna
Last I
go.
heard, the select board didn't want anything to do with us on that matter, and neither did the lawyer.
No, that's, I don't know what you've heard, but what I just told you is what the tax collector told me Tuesday of this week, and he's trying to schedule a meeting for us to get together, face-to-face meeting with the select board to discuss this with the attorneys, and then we'll
If we
know.
go with West Rutland, you guys, and, like, okay, let's take that $42,000 that person owes us. Is that gonna fall onto you, or are they gonna be starting at zero?
No, the fire district accounting has to stay, I would assume, stays with the fire district.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
lot.
it's starting, there's no transfer of cash across.
Right.
Like the delinquent things
No,
are.
no, that's yours, just like the land, or anything else that you own or are owed or
So if
whatever.
we sell that land, that money's not gonna go
I
to the
would,
water and sewer district of West Rutland?
I would assume no, I would assume not,
It'd
sure.
be up to you guys to decide where that money goes.
Yeah.
You know, as a fire district, you would decide where that money, if you sold all that land, that's up to you guys.
Or collect the.
Or collect the tax, that's all your money to do with what you want, what you see fit to do.
Why was it allowed for that person to have that amount and nothing had been taken care of? Obviously, it didn't happen in a year's time. Why wasn't it taken care of? If it was one of us, our water would have been turned right off probably. So why is it okay for one family
How
or
did it get
whatever?
so high is what we're
Right.
asking.
It's baffling all of us, that amount of money, that's a lot of money.
Oh, it is.
Right.
There's no question. It got totally out of hand. The owner of the building was working with the bank and with us, saying that she was trying to get this thing resolved, so we gave her a little extra time with that. She was very helpful with Bennington Furniture. With 2 winters in a row, they were without water, and she supplied water for them. She supplied, they ran lines from her house for the entire winter, and And so we were trying to work with her on this thing. And then we set up a deal with them where we were charging the renters in the building, and they were paying the water bills. We ran into an issue where in some apartments there's one individual, in some there's two or there's three. And the one individual person said, I'm not, I don't like that I'm having to pay the same amount as the others that have two or three people in their apartments. And so I suggested that we bill them proportionally. If you have one person, you pay for the amount for one person, or two or three.
Well, we went through that.
And what happened was, in the end, well, the Prudential Committee felt that it didn't really matter. Well, in the end, it mattered, because then they all stopped paying. They just quit. And then we got into, of course, COVID came along and everything else. It's just, this thing just kept mushrooming and rolling. The town was going to put this up for tax sale. It's been going on for a couple of years. And right now, the attorneys are saying, let's do the next step with the town to see where this goes before we do whatever. We have our attorney involved in looking at it, but we're waiting now to see what we can work up with the select board for a tax sale. And then we don't know what we're going to collect. It all depends on how this sale goes, as far as...
Why didn't Bennington Furniture have any water?
Bennington Furniture froze up 2 years in a row. The water line in front of their building where all that shade is, they froze up, and they did not have any water. And the only place they could get it from was really from Turner's apartment.
They're still delinquent now, according to this. They don't exist anymore.
Bennington?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they changed names. I don't know, are they on the list?
Yeah, they are.
Is it the same company? Still the same company?
Yes, they are the same company.
Back when I was brought in January, we asked about shutting off the water, and that was before COVID, so.
And you know, there's three of us on the board.
And I voted shut it off, everybody did.
And the two of you have outvoted me more than once. And you had every right to vote however you wanted to shut that water off, so don't throw the blame right here.
Sign the paper.
I'm gonna say something too, is, I've been on the Prudential Committee for voting member for a little over 4 years. I've only had my term done once. And every year that I've been on, there was a vote, and Tim Solari was on with me. And there was a vote, and we would vote to shut Turner's off. And, you know, then we'd have to go through the process of warning it, giving them a letter, making sure that there was 30 days. And for some reason, they would either come in and pay something, and then, you know, we wouldn't have a meeting for 6 months, and I'd come in and find out, oh, well, it hasn't been shut off. Or I'd say, so we'd vote again. Well, we can't do it this winter because we don't like shutting off in the winter. And that's happened several times. And then the last meeting I had with Tim, a customer came in before and asked if he was going to get shut off because he couldn't pay his bills, and I happened to be there. And Howard said no, we weren't going to shut anybody off. And so at that meeting, I asked if we vote today to shut Turner's off, will you let us do it? And he said no.
I said no?
You looked me right in the face.
Oh, no.
Because
Come on.
we didn't want to shut water off on children.
I said I didn't want to.
Right.
But
we voted several times.
All you and Tim had to do was go get the wrench and shut it off. Simple as that, Keith.
No, you have to sign the papers.
You have to sign the papers.
Your chair.
And
nobody's handed me, unless it just getting out of control, nobody's ever put any papers in front of me and asked me to sign anything. It's never happened.
Howard,
it's never happened.
Howard, every
Not to change the subject, Mark, what has to be done? Is it literally just open a valve and connect it to West Rutland?
We're not here to discuss.
Is there a pump house needs to be built, or what's the cost associated with actually turning the water on?
No, okay, if I'll answer, I see your hand up, but let me answer that. If you were to vote to connect to West Rutland, I actually have another commitment, so I need to excuse myself very shortly, but if you vote to connect to West Rutland, the only thing that needs to be built, it would be a pressure reducing vault, because West Rutland's tanks are higher than yours. So it would be a concrete vault somewhere near the fire station that would essentially have a pressure reducing valve in it, so that it equalize, so that your tank doesn't overflow. And that's what would need to be.
Mark?
Yeah.
Is that the one that we would split the cost 50/50?
My suggestion is that would be a cost that would be split 50/50.
Okay, I just want to make sure you were talking about this.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes.
If we go to West Side and everything goes nice and smooth, is there a cost, or we have to do something to that well up there, or do we just walk away with it?
No, you could essentially, I mean, there isn't if you were to abandon it, you basically fill it with concrete. Or you could potentially sell it to somebody else and they could use it either as a private well. I mean, you could sell it with the land. You could actually sell the land with a water supply and a storage tank for somebody who might want to have a water supply, a heck of a water supply on a piece of property. I mean, you want to build a house with 200,000 gallons of storage up above it, it'd be kind of nice.
The Turners could go there.
Okay.
But anyway.
Yes, I will.
Howard, I do need to, if there's no more questions for me.
We'll continue on with the meeting and try to move things along here. Thank you all for putting up with as long as we've been here, for an hour and a half already. Okay, we've already handled Article 1, which was to elect the clerk of the said district. We'll now have to elect the treasurer of the said district, so I'll open it up for nominations for treasurer of the district.
Sharon. Nominate Sharon.
Second? Anybody?
Second.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Since there are none, all in favor of Sharon Joswick being the treasurer of the said district for next year?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Sharon is the treasurer for next year. To elect a member of the Prudential Committee for 3 years. And it's my term is up now, so we'll open the floor up for nominations for whoever.
Sharon.
Question before you start. Because it's your job, Howard, the Robert's rules, Keith has to run this part of the meeting. You can't, because it's...
So, are there any nominations?
Sharon.
Are we gonna, okay.
We got a little monotony here.
Howard.
Howard, that's who Howard.
Okay, wait a minute.
Howard.
Who said Howard? Is that your
I
name?
did.
Oh, Mary Lou, right? Okay.
It's Howard's term, so
Hold on just a second, the fire station's going, truck's going by. Thank you.
so I guess all in favor of Howard, say aye.
Aye.
Could you keep your hands up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11. And all in favor, I guess
Sharon.
Sharon, and that was seconded. So Sharon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 7, 8, 9. Here's the 2 for Sharon? Okay, 9. So Howard has it.
Howard's in.
Howard's in, and Howard is chair.
Now you're gonna vote for chair.
Okay,
For what?
well, thank you.
Oh, I thought that was.
Now you're gonna vote for chair.
Okay, well, all in favor, any nominations for chair?
Sharon.
No, I can't.
Oh, one of us
She
can?
can't do everything.
I vote, well, yeah, she can, actually.
Howard.
Keith.
Can I ask some questions? I'm new to the whole thing.
Sure.
So sorry. Howard's been chair for the last 40 years, it sounds like, right?
He's done a good job.
You're looking to retire. Do you want to be chair still?
Yes, I'll continue on through this, yes. as long as we've got what we got, yes.
Because last meeting we had, Howard, you said you weren't gonna do it anymore.
Right.
Now you're gonna do it.
Yes, because I talked him into it.
And Keith, would you want to be chair, and would it be good to get some new blood? No offense, Howard, again, I don't know anybody, I don't, but.
I personally don't really want to be chair.
Or even Kim.
Or
I'll
even
do
Kim.
it. I don't care.
Well,
Excuse me?
I have a question. I thought 2 years ago when we had a meeting that you weren't chair and he was chair.
No.
Or was I mistaken? I thought when we had the last meeting, because we weren't able to meet last year, but the meeting.
Point of order. Whether or not Howard gets elected chair is up to you three people. The people on the floor have nothing to say about that.
Yes, we do, we can vote.
Yes, it's an
For the annual meeting,
It's an annual
though.
meeting, we have the right to vote.
We just voted for everybody else, the whole,
The only discussion legally is what's on this paper is legal.
He's got a point. Jim's got a point. It's not an article.
So you gotta plan another date?
leave it.
So I would suggest to go on to Article 4.
Okay.
all right, Article 4 is to elect a tax collector for the district. And open the floor for nominations.
Sharon?
I'll second.
Not unless Howard will sign my paperwork for shutting off water, because I got people I want to shut water off for.
You get the paperwork and put it together, and we have a meeting, and we will take care of it. I don't know what you're talking about, Sharon, but you just get it together.
And
we will.
and if all three of you vote on it, even 2 against 1, you'll still sign it, right?
Certainly,
Okay. Even if there's children in there,
certainly, that's what it is.
all right?
So Sharon for treasurer?
Yeah, well, I nominated Sharon. for
I
treasurer.
second it.
Okay, where are we here?
Wait, what are you voting
Tax
for?
collector?
Treasurer.
Okay.
Sharon usually does it.
Didn't we
Anyway.
already vote for treasurer?
She's
No,
clerk.
tax collector.
Tax
Tax collector, whatever.
Sorry.
Sorry. Wrong one.
Okay, Article 4, we have Sharon was nominated
Yeah.
and seconded. Are there any other nominations? If not, all in favor of Sharon being the tax collector?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's Sharon, you're the tax collector. We have an invoice from Otter Creek Engineering on here to approve. This invoice is for a study the preliminary study that Mark Youngstrom did 2 years ago. We have a motion to approve and this invoice for payment.
Motion.
hasn't been paid.
How much is it for?
I would-
Well, the Prudential Committee did not approve that to be done. It has to be voted on, and it was not voted to
Yeah.
go ahead.
The guy did the work, and he was very good tonight.
he hasn't been paid.
At the
We
last-
didn't vote on it.
At the last meeting, they decided.
Right, that's why it's on there tonight, so that it can be, like, that's why I suggested, how do we get this paid? And it was
Right.
said it needed to be on this,
Right.
it needed to be on this point of order, and so whether we vote
How
for
much
it or
is
you
it?
vote for it, the man should be paid for what he did.
Right.
Was the last meeting that we had, that was my point. So how do we get him paid? And whether you have to vote for it to pay for him, or we have to vote for it, he should get paid.
Absolutely.
So I make a motion that we pay him,
Yes, he needs to
as I did in the meeting.
I second
We
the
have-
motion.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have
Pay
a
him
second?
what he's billed us for and what the work he's done.
Okay, Bill, thank you. Do we have a second of that? Second.
Okay, wait a minute, sorry. Who seconded it? The first person? Name?
Oh, Tony.
Tony? Okay. Are you up on Campbell Road? Are you
North, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, go ahead.
All in favor of approving the payment for Otter Creek Engineering, say aye.
Aye.
You opposed?
Aye.
Yeah?
The ayes have it, so it's approved for payment. The financial report, Sharon, you have a financial report to
Yeah,
go over?
everybody's got a copy of it.
Well, you want to go over it, or?
Yeah, it's pretty basic. So the checking account, our loan balance, that's the one you pay a $30 bond, which will be in this billing coming out, and the past dues.
Anybody have any questions about the financial report?
I have related to the financial report. I don't know if I want to open this can of worms or not. The past due bills, which obviously affect the financial report,
Yep.
should the Prudential Committee or somebody get a plan in writing? If you were past due for more than a year, your water gets shut off. I don't care if you have 100 orphans living with you. Should there be a concrete written plan so we don't have this infighting and he said, she said, you did, God didn't, all you had to do is that. That's just a question.
It's a good point. No, it's a good point. It makes sense. You're right. I mean, this is,
Piece by piece.
they should have been shut off. And I'll say this, now unfortunately, this is all behind us.
Right.
We're gonna have a meeting with the select board, and if that doesn't work, then we should shut them off. But I think,
Well, no, but moving forward from today on,
Yeah.
so the next time the water bills come out and Steve Smith, I apologize if there's a Steve Smith, but doesn't pay for the next two bills, Steve's water gets shut off.
well, we've never, we got a lot of people here who haven't paid for
Yes.
quite a bit of time. And so, I don't know how you set,
From,
There's a policy.
from August 1, 2021, if you don't pay your water bill X amount of times, your
We
water gets
should
shut
be able to
off.
leverage from some other town what they do.
yeah, and I don't know how it's handled, but that, you make a good point. And
I don't know how any of this is handled either, I just, if you have a written
What we've done,
plan.
what we've done in the past, just keep you up to speed. I send the bill out. 30 days later, they get a past due. Okay, then another 30 days, you get another past due. What has happened in the past, when it reaches 500, that's when we should be shutting it off.
Okay, so-
$500.
There's a plan in place.
Yeah, but in between time, what I do is I try to contact them, find out why they're not paying it, what they can do. Do they want to get on a monthly plan with us, pay us so much?
Just like what West Rutland said, you could pay them.
Yeah, we try to work with them, If you do a contract with us, and for some reason you can't make that payment, they're to call one of us and tell us what's going on, and maybe we'll, skip that month. But then after the 500, that's when we should be turning it off, and that's where we run into some problems.
Is that written into the bylaws?
I can't remember that, if it's in the bylaws or not, but that's what, I'm sorry, Dick Del Bianco taught me to do. And he's no longer with us, so, yeah, but that's what I've done.
It's been, not my personal experience, but just in life in general. If you turn somebody's water off, they'll come up with money in a day or two.
Oh, yeah.
You turn off their power, they'll come up with money.
Keith and I had that situation with between our houses, and we got Tim on the phone, and we got them to make a payment and pay it out. So it did work.
And go out there with that wrench.
Yeah, if none of you want to be the bad guy, I have a wrench at my house. I don't mind.
Well, I think you just.
I pay my bill, everyone should pay their own.
You have to have a policy though to enforce though, I think, because legally, you gotta have something that you can follow legally though, in case something were to go wrong and you did something illegal by shutting something.
Well, according to the on the pink slip, there's a pink slip that it's a paper, and you have to do it on pink paper, and it lays it all out.
they get notified, and they get warned and notified as to what's going on, so they have opportunity to react. And then if they don't, after a certain, period of time, you shut it off. And you're right, I mean, we got a bunch of them here we can, I guess, need to really look at, because they're growing, they're crazy. I mean, we got the one outstanding one, but then we got 2,000 and a couple more that are almost, the 1,000, a third one, yeah. Anyways, as a district, we'll talk about it here. We appreciate your comments and where you're coming from, and it's good. So I guess in Article 7 is to transact any other necessary legal or proper business. Does anybody have anything more to? We do need to, the sooner we can come to a conclusion as to whether we want to go with West Rutland or not would be very beneficial, because if we're going to stay as a fire district, then we should get an engineer on board and really start straightening things out with the fire district. But the longer we let this thing wait, it's just, it doesn't help. And we certainly hate to go spending a lot of money on the fire district now if we end up going to West Rutland. That would be, just some wasted money. So the sooner we can come together and get this vote out of the way, it'll be said and done and over with. And then we can march on.
So who makes that decision for the next step to move forward with the water? Who makes that?
What has to happen next, Howard?
What's that?
What's the next step? Do we go have
There'll be another meeting, I would think.
Oh, is there?
I think what people want to know is, what's it gonna cost, is it gonna cost for them to stay with the fire district?
No, they want to know the next step.
The next
No.
physical
I know, but that's
step
one of the things we want to know is what is it gonna cost?
Right.
You can't decide to go to West Rutland when you don't, instead of that 100,000 that Mark, he said, it's gonna be 200,000. So you're like, oh, well, he said 100,000.
You're right. And I think before we have the vote, leading up to the vote, all these answers gotta come out. We need to really find out financially where do we stand.
So how do you do that? How does that happen?
We're gonna have to, and I'm sure, Mark is using some rough numbers that he keeps saying that he thinks that 100,000 is a good number for what he's talking about for those immediate repairs. But then he's not sure if it's gonna be a bond or how it's gonna be handled because of,
and then our water rates will go up.
And Paul Giuliani, who was the bond counsel, who really generally ends up handling all this stuff, it would be awful nice to get him on board with both West Rutland and us, and just to give us some direction as to where to go with this.
Do we have funds to pay him?
We would split the costs, and we have to pay him for sure. But that's
regardless of what we do next, there's a cost associated with it.
It's sure.
In my opinion, joining with West Rutland is like you're out of milk at your house and you just come over to mine because I have 2 gallons. Why don't we keep it and put the money in and keep the fire district? And I understand the drought threat, but quite honestly, West Rutland's under the same drought threat. Lake Mead dried up. I don't know how many, it's a 100,000 acre lake. No water is absolute. And if they start to go dry, are they going to start cutting off Price Chopper? No, they're going to shut the valve out here on Route 4.
All these are things that need to be.
Yeah, and if they go dry, then we would have gone.
Yeah, we're already in desert.
So I think that could be a.
Everyone is all about buy local, keep it local.
Yeah, but we're not making necessary repairs, that's why we're at the vote.
Right, well, that has to do with the past people that were supposed to say, boy, that shingle needs to be replaced, and spending that money 20 years ago. If it was built 40 years ago, 20-year shingles, so we're 20 years past our roof. So you can't go back and fix past mistakes, but you can stop making the same mistakes going forward.
These repairs should have been done over the last 5 years, nothing's been done, so these should have been done as we went along and nothing ever got done, so.
Our rates will have to go up to get that stuff.
Yes, but they're going to
go
up anyway.
Make sure the customers understand why they're going up, and then we have tournaments.
So it could cost us more than paying West Rutland, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, it will, definitely.
It'll cost us more.
No matter what, we're gonna pay for meters. Whatever system we go.
Right, the meter price is a wash.
Yeah, right,
That's
right,
whatever.
right.
Whatever cost is associated with decommissioning the well and the tank, which should be covered by the sale of land if that's.
But do we have anybody interested in buying? it?
Exactly.
Are there different
Well,
kinds of
you can-
meters that are cheaper than
That's prime
going
real
around
estate,
doing
Sharon.
that?
That I don't know.
Sharon, that's prime real estate up there, where the well is. Believe me, I know it's developers already.
It would be nice to know if somebody is interested though.
Yes, there is.
It would be nice to know.
That might help out down the road for bonds
Yep.
and things through West Rutland even.
Is there anything else? I know we've been here for, I thank you all for all this, but I know some of you are anxious to move on, so is there anything more?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay, wait a minute, so, I'm
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
All right.